Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here. And 7 years later, here we are still talking about Skyrim again. I'm sure Todd is very proud. There seems to be a number of reasons for the Elder Scrolls V's continued relevancy. However, one of the ways Bethesda tried to make each playthrough fresh and keep your travels from feeling dull was through the implementation of random encounters. Random encounters have sort of become a staple in Bethesda titles, and they're essentially a number of randomly selected world events that can trigger at prefixed locations. Some of these interactions are as simple as bandits waiting for their next victim to ambush, or as dull as a humble merchant making their way across Skyrim's landscape. But a good number of the game's random encounters are anything but mundane, and can be incredibly fascinating. So, I figured what better way to spend this fine day than diving into some of the most unique. Sit back and relax as we take a look at 5 of the strangest random encounters in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Starting off, Babette is the Breton vampire currently working as an assassin for the Dark Brotherhood. Her character is especially notable, as despite being well over 300 years old, she was turned undead as a child, and as a result, still boasts the appearance of a young, harmless little girl, despite being one of the franchise's oldest and most evil characters. She normally, of course, can be found chilling in the Brotherhood's Falkreath Sanctuary, and doesn't seem to ever leave the place. Until it's sacked by the Penitus Oculatus later in the game and the guild's forced to relocate. However, if the Dawnguard DLC has been installed, and you're a member of the Assassin Cult, a new random encounter will become available, in which this eternal 10-year-old vampire can be found quite a ways from home. Between the hours of 10 PM and 5 AM, so pretty much just nighttime, Babette may be spotted at the sides of roads next to corpses. When approached, she'll tell you that she needed a bit of a snack, and the menu back at the sanctuary just wasn't cutting it for her.
Listener, fancy seeing you out here. I'm sure Nazir's cooking is great and all, but my appetites are a little more discerning. Didn't put up much of a fight, but made for a tasty snack. A rich bouquet of flavors. I would definitely recommend it. I must head back to the sanctuary before dawn. I will see you there, listener.
Next on our list, the Daedric quest, A Night to Remember, is already a pretty unique one that many players will probably never forget. It begins after a Breton man named Sangavine invites the player to a drinking contest at a random tavern, promising to reward you with a special staff if you're able to win. Accept the challenge and you will win, fairly easily. However, black out before you're able to claim your prize. And awake sometime later, only to learn that, after the contest, you and Sam went on quite the drunken rampage, and now the Dovahkiin must pick up the pieces. Long story short, you ruined a Temple of Dibella, lost a dude's goat, and married a Hagraven. Oh, and Sam turns out to be Sanguine, Daedric Prince of Debauchery. Well, after you've finally completed the quest, an interesting new random encounter will be unlocked, wherein, while traveling Skyrim's terrain, an odd Argonian fellow by the name of Deep in His Cups will approach you and demand that you pay him 10,000 gold. Apparently, or at least according to him, during your night out with Sam Guivine, again a night that you don't remember, you and Sam dared Mr. Cups to sneak into a bandit camp and steal the leader's hat, promising him 10k septims if he succeeded. Welp, evidently he did, and now he's tracked you down, ready for his reward.
Whoa, not so fast there, friend. You owe me money. We caroused together with Sam Guivin, remember? We broke into the Temple of Dibella. How much did you end up drinking?
From here, you'll have a few options. Either A, tell him no, you're not gonna give him 10,000 gold, which will cause our scaly-skinned friend here to turn hostile in anger. B, intimidate him into just going you away and leaving you alone. C, persuade him down to 750 septims. Or D, just outright give him the 10,000 and get him to leave. Of course, we're also faced with the interesting question of, is this guy telling the truth? I mean, if he is, then in all fairness, we do kind of owe it to him. But on the other hand, we don't remember any of that night, and that just sounds utterly ridiculous. I find the fact that you could just pay this dude a fortune, literally more gold than any of the game's houses are worth, to be just absolutely hysterical. However, considering he is literally willing to die over it, Deep in His Cups clearly doesn't view this whole fiasco as quite as funny. Coming in at number 3, we set our sails toward the island of Solstheim. As when traversing the paths of this ash-covered isle, we might happen upon a Bosmer wizard, who, after muttering to himself for a bit, will, well, you know what? Just watch and listen.
To touch the sky like a dragon. It's working! I'm flying! What?
This poor wood elf seems to have been experimenting with the power of flight. Alas, his experiment didn't seem to yield the exact results he was looking for. On the wizard's body will be his diary note, titled Journal of a Madman, in which the author simply rambles about his dreams of flight and promises to prove all those who said it was impossible were wrong. Which, in fairness, he did do. Now, this whole random encounter is actually a reference by Bethesda to another random encounter from a previous Elder Scrolls installment. In Morrowind, it was possible for the player to find a Bospor mage by the name of Tarheel. He was a wizard in the wilds who would dash into the sky before the Nerevarine was able to interact with him, and would also come crashing back down in terror as well. Tarheel, for his part, would carry 3 scrolls of flight, which fortified the player's acrobatics by 1,000 points for 7 seconds. Something a bit more useful to ourselves than a simple crazy person's journal. Regardless, I guess if you put it in the right way, it is kinda nice to see someone chasing Tarheel's legacy and pioneering flight in the Elder Scrolls. Even if not the most successful. For 4th spot, this one's really cool, because it's a random encounter that sort of has 2 parts to it. Let me explain. Before completing the Dark Brotherhood quest, Bound Until Death, which sends the player to assassinate the Emperor's cousin, Vittoria Vici, at her wedding in Solitude, it's possible to come across a pair of nobles and their bodyguard on Skyrim's roads. Plottis Carvain and his wife Salonia are both on their way to that very wedding you'll later crash. Apparently Plottis is a successful merchant from Cyrodiil, and he plans to give the bride-to-be an assortment of gifts, which he hopes will lead to her getting him an audience with the Emperor. Neither are particularly polite. In fact, both talk down to the Dovahkiin, which probably is not the best thing to do, considering you are, like, the chosen one and all, and they're highly critical of Skyrim itself. But if you're able to exercise just a little bit of self-restraint and don't murder these people to death right then and there, you can just so happen to spot them again later on in your playthrough. You see, after Bound Until Death has been completed, and Vittoria Vici taken care of, both Plottis and his wife will be available for a second random encounter, though they will clearly have fallen a few pegs down in life. Their bodyguard is nowhere to be found. Plottis is in rags, and Salonia is now without shoes. Oh my, what happened here? Well, speaking to them and overhearing some dialogue between the couple will reveal that they never even made it to the wedding in the first place. Supposedly, along the way they were robbed by bandits. As they made their way back, Plottis then had his clothes torn to pieces by a saber cat, their guard was later eaten by a dragon, and Salonia's shoes were ruined along the walk. Now, you would imagine such a terrible series of events would humble a person, right? Well, in this case, you would be very wrong. That not-so-warm welcome to Skyrim didn't do much to improve the content of their character. Both of these NPCs will still remain very disrespectful to the player. And so now, if you feel like it, you can give the two one final poor experience in Skyrim. And finally, last on our list, much like our number 2 spot, this encounter only becomes possible after the completion of a quest. Specifically, the Mind of Madness, the Daedric god of insanity, Sheogorath's mission, which sends you to his plane of oblivion and forces you to complete a number of weird challenges. Once done, the prince will send you back to the mortal realm, Skyrim again, and leave you with his special staff, the Wabbajack, as a sort of parting gift. The Wabbajack is easily among the most unique weapons in the game, as rather than cast some normal fire or ice magic like you would expect a staff to do, it instead casts a completely random spell, which can do anything from turning your foe into a sweet roll to making them even more powerful than what they initially were. Truly fitting for an artifact from the Daedric god of madness. Well, after this quest's been completed and you have the Wabbajack, it'll become possible to meet a new NPC on roadsides. An elderly woman, just named Mad Woman. One approached, rather than demand that you give her enough gold to pay off her house or something like some of the fellows we've covered here, she'll instead ask that you use the Wabbajack on her. And until you do, she'll just say, Wabbajack, 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 again and again as she wanders around aimlessly.
Wabbajack, 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 Wabbajack! Wabbajack, 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 Wabbajack!
Now, if you decide to satisfy her crazy request, she'll transform into a rabbit of all things and hop around for a little while, before returning back to her normal, I use that word loosely, elderly woman form, and then just proceeding to ignore you. It's really odd. You might also notice that if you peek into her inventory, she doesn't carry much besides her clothes, a dagger, and a curious pair of tongs. While such a utensil may seem trivial at first, her carrying of the item seems to be a reference to the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion's Shivering Isles DLC, which took players to the Shivering Isles, Sheogorath's Plane of Oblivion, and notably featured an especially odd quest, where a man named Tove the Unrestful would ask the hero of Kvatch to get him as many tongs and or calipers as possible in order to satisfy an invention he was working on. At this point, it's clear as day. This madwoman's undoubtedly one of Sheogorath's worshippers, and likely may have even been to his realm of oblivion herself. And, if you so please, the player has the option to send her soul right back. And with that, we are going to wrap up 5 odd random encounters you may have missed in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Which of what we got to explore today did you find to be your favorite interaction or most unique? And what things and folks have you randomly encountered throughout your playthroughs that I didn't cover today? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.